Welcome back to Recap Spot. Today we'll be recapping a romantic fantasy film called The Shape of Water. The film opens with a woman named Elisa dreaming about her apartment being submerged in water. Her alarm goes off and wakes her up, returning everything in the apartment to normal. Elisa, a mute woman who lives an average life, runs herself a bath and gets ready for work. She packs her lunch and makes an extra plate, which she brings over to her best friend and neighbor, an advertisement artist named Giles. They sit together for a moment and watch an old musical number on TV.
What's this?
And Giles talks about how difficult the dance is. Elisa eventually leaves for work, and as she walks down the hallway, she dances. Elisa lives above a theater, and as she leaves, her landlord runs by and gives her 2 free tickets to a movie, asking her and Giles to come watch a movie the next time they pay their rent. Elisa gets on a bus and rides it to the Occam Aerospace Research Center, where she works as a janitor. Elisa is called over by her best friend Zelda, who's holding a spot in line for her to punch her time card.
Come on, I'm here already.
Zelda and Elisa go about their shift cleaning various areas of the research center, while Zelda complains about her husband being useless. They eventually get to a research lab with a large pool. Chief of Security Fleming introduces Dr. Hofstetler and his team, and he announces that they have a new asset being housed in the lab that is greater than anything they've ever studied before.
Moment of your time?
The asset is delivered in a large tank, accompanied by Richard Strickland, a vicious government agent. Elisa looks into the tank with the asset and is shocked when an amphibious hand hits the glass. The creature starts banging on the tank and yelling, while Elisa and Zelda are escorted out of the room. The next day, Giles and Elisa go to a restaurant so Giles can get his favorite pie, but it's obvious that he actually has a crush on the man behind the counter. The two take their pie back to Giles' apartment to eat, and the dessert is actually awful, but Giles doesn't care because he only goes to the shop for the guy.
Yeah, I'll come back now, you hear?
At work, Elisa and Zelda are cleaning the men's restroom when Strickland comes in to pee while both of the women are still there. He introduces himself and warns Elisa not to touch his battle prod as she cleans the counters. As he leaves, it's evident that he's taking a liking to Elisa. The women are cleaning the trash cans in the hallway when the doors to the secret lab open and Strickland stumbles out while clutching his bleeding hand. Scientists rush to his side, and Elisa and Zelda are later called in to clean the lab. The lab is covered in blood, and the girls start cleaning it up, and Zelda eventually finds Strickland's bit-off fingers, and she puts them into a bag while Zelda runs to get Fleming.
2 fingers.
Elisa goes over to the creature's tank and finally sees the amphibian man that's being kept there, and she sees that he's injured. Fleming and Zelda then come back and collect Strickland's fingers. Elisa tries to tell Giles about what she saw in the tank, but he doesn't fully believe her. Giles shows Elisa his most recent advertisement before heading to show it to his boss, but his boss tells him he needs to change some of the colors. That night at work, Elisa heads to the fishman's pool and cracks an egg. He swims over to her to investigate, but freaks out when she tries to hand him the egg. She decides to set the egg on the edge of the pool, and she shows him the sign language for egg. The fishman takes the egg and dives back into the water. Zelda then finds Elisa and tells her that Strickland wants to see them in his office. Strickland questions them on their background, and it turns out that Elisa was orphaned as a baby and was found in the water of a river.
They found her by the river.
He thanks her for finding his fingers, and Elisa returns his wedding band to him. Zelda tells Strickland that Elisa is mute, and he asks if the scars on her neck are the reason she's mute, but Elisa doesn't think so. Strickland tells them not to linger in the creature's lab after cleaning it, and it turns out that he's the one who captured it and brought it to the facility. Strickland then gets a call from a general to discuss a visit he wants to take to the facility. Meanwhile, the creature looks at the eggshell left by Elisa and imitates the egg sign language. We see Strickland at his home, where it seems like he has the classic American life. He talks to his wife about wanting a new car before sleeping with her and covering her mouth so she'll be silent. We then see Elisa cleaning up the creature's lab. Once all the scientists leave, she plays some records for the fishman and gives him an egg while eating her own lunch. He eventually comes to join her, and she shows him the sign language for music. We see a montage of Elisa spending more and more time with the creature, showing him different kinds of music and showing him how to dance. She also teaches him more and more sign language. Elisa dances for the creature and touches the glass of its tank, not knowing that she's actually being observed by Dr. Hofstetler. Dr. Hofstetler goes to meet with his real bosses in the kitchen of a fancy Russian restaurant. It turns out that Hofstetler is actually a Soviet spy, and he provides the other Soviet agents with information on the creature and the blueprint of the lab so that it can be stolen. He tells the agent that they should try to get the creature sooner rather than later, because he believes it's intelligent and able to communicate. Back at the facility, Elisa is working on the laundry and learns that one of the exterior cameras can be pushed to a blind spot. She goes to visit the creature later that day and finds it's wounded. Strickland begins to enter the lab, forcing Elisa to hide. She sees him taunt and torture the creature with his stun baton.
This is what scared you, huh?
The general that called Strickland earlier arrives and is shocked by the creature's appearance. Strickland tells the general that the natives used to worship the creature like a god, but neither man thinks it looks like a god now. Hofstadler notices that the creature is bleeding and is angry with Strickland for hurting it. Hofstadler then tells the general that the creature can alternate between two entirely different forms of breathing, making it a unique find that will greatly help scientific progress. Hofstadler notices the creature in the lab, but chooses not to say anything. The creature starts to suffocate because he's been out of the water for too long, and eventually orders the men to put it back in the tank. Strickland tells the general that they need to dissect the creature, but Hofstadler is vehemently against this.
No. Take it apart. No. Learn out.
Elisa overhears everything and secretly follows the group back to Strickland's office, where she's crushed to learn that the creature is scheduled to be killed. Elisa tells Giles that they need to break the creature out, but he refuses because it's illegal and dangerous. Elisa admits that she's in love with the fishman, but Giles still refuses to help, and she tells him that if they do nothing, then they won't be human anymore.
We can do nothing.
Giles goes to meet with his boss about the painting and learns that the client has decided to drop him entirely. He then goes to the diner for pie, and he talks to the man behind the counter, only to find out that the man is homophobic and racist. Giles goes back to Elisa and tells her that he'll help. Hofstadler meets with his boss again and is given two options: delay the procedure or knock out the power in the facility long enough so that he can kill the creature himself. Hofstadler doesn't want to go through with either option, but he's told he has no choice. Meanwhile, Strickland buys a fancy new car that he hates the look of just because he thinks he'll be seen as successful.
You're the man of the future.
Hofstadler feeds the creature, and Elisa stakes out the lab, figuring out the best way to get the creature out of there. Zelda is suspicious that Elisa is planning something. Giles paints the side of his van to look like the laundry vans that frequent the facility, and the two plan on sneaking the creature out in a laundry cart. Strickland spills some water in his office and calls Elisa to clean it while he creepily hits on her. Elisa begins moving the cameras and preparing for the escape plan, while Hofstadler tries to convince Strickland to delay the procedure. Hofstadler notices Elisa moving the cameras and decides to help her since Strickland won't budge on killing the creature.
Who do you work for?
Zelda goes to find Elisa as Hofstadler helps Elisa free the creature and tells her what she needs to keep him healthy. Hofstadler says he'll knock out the power and meet her at the loading dock in 5 minutes. Strickland is suspicious when he sees Giles' van on the cameras. Zelda finds Elisa with the creature and reluctantly agrees to help her. Soon the power goes out and Hofstadler kills the guard in front of Giles' van, allowing him to get to the loading dock. Zelda finds Elisa and decides to help her. The creature is loaded into the van and everyone drives off while the security guards shoot at the van. Giles and Elisa get the creature into her tub with the mixture and it's able to breathe again. Strickland begins to investigate the facility to figure out how the creature was rescued.
How'd they get in here?
Elisa gets the idea to release the creature back into the ocean when the October rains flood the canals, and she writes it down in her calendar. She bonds with the creature when she gets home, and the two hold hands. She goes back to work with Zelda the next day, and they pretend like they don't know anything. Strickland calls Elisa and Zelda into his office and questions them. However, he eventually decides that the people who grabbed the creature must have been highly trained agents. Giles finds the creature eating one of his cats and is accidentally hurt when the creature gets scared. Hofstadler gives the woman another care package for the creature before they leave.
If you need anything, release him soon.
And they tell him about the plan to release the creature. Elisa gets home and is worried about Giles, but he tells her that he's fine, and she needs to go find the creature. She finds him in a theater and is able to bring him home, and the creature uses its special abilities to heal Giles' wound. Strickland questions Hofstadler and obviously suspects him. Elisa continues to bond with the fishman, and ends up sleeping with it. Hofstadler gets a visit from his bosses, who think that he killed the creature, and they tell him that they'll contact him when they have his extraction plan. Elisa and the creature fall more in love, and Giles begins to think that the creature really might be a god. Hofstadler eventually gets a call about his extraction. Elisa soon discovers that the creature is molting and getting sick due to being out of the water for so long. The general meets with Strickland and tells him that he'll lose his job if he doesn't find the creature soon.
So go get some real decency, son.
Eventually, it's the day for the creature's release, and Elisa tells him how much she loves him. The creature is getting sicker and sicker and must be released that night. Strickland stakes out Hofstetler's house and follows him when he goes to meet at the extraction point. Hofstetler gets shot, but Strickland ends up killing the men before they can finish Hofstetler off. Strickland tortures Hofstetler until he finds out that Elisa and Zelda were the ones that stole the creature. Strickland goes to Zelda's house and finds out all of the details from her husband, and Zelda calls Elisa to warn her that Strickland is on the way to come get the creature. Elisa and Giles rush the creature to the canals, but Strickland is able to catch up to them at the last second and shoots the creature and Elisa. Giles attacks Strickland and buys the creature enough time to heal his own wounds and kill Strickland. Zelda and the police arrive on the dock as the creature takes Elisa's body and jumps into the ocean with her. The creature kisses Elisa, healing her and opening the scars on her neck, which turn out to be gills, and the two embrace.